I never thought I'd fall in love at a warehouse job. It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but that's exactly what happened. My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how watching someone stack heavy crates changed my entire life. The morning I met Jake, I'd been working at Morrison's Industrial Supply for exactly 3 weeks. It was one of those sprawling warehouse operations on the edge of town, the kind of place where the coffee is always burnt and the fluorescent lights hum like dying insects. I'd taken the job after my graphic design freelancing dried up. Rent doesn't pay itself, and pride doesn't fill an empty stomach. So there I was, 28 years old, wearing steel-toed boots and a safety vest, trying not to think about how far I'd fallen from my dreams. Jake started that Tuesday morning. I remember because Tuesdays were inventory days, which meant extra chaos and everyone's temper running short. Our supervisor, Bill, a gruff man with a permanent scowl, brought Jake around to introduce him. I was reorganizing a section of plumbing supplies when they walked up. "Marcus, this is Jake. He'll be your partner on the floor," Bill grunted. "Show him the ropes." I looked up, and I swear something in my chest shifted. Jake was tall, maybe 6'2", with broad shoulders and these impossibly kind brown eyes. His dark hair was slightly messy, like he'd rushed out the door that morning. He had this nervous energy about him, hands shoved in his pockets, a half smile on his face that seemed apologetic for existing. "Hey," he said, extending his hand. "Thanks for showing me around. I promise I'm a quick learner." His handshake was firm, warm. I felt something electric pass between us, but I immediately pushed it down. I'd learned a long time ago not to hope for things that seemed impossible. This was a warehouse job in a conservative town. Whatever I was feeling needed to stay buried. "No problem," I managed. "It's pretty straightforward once you get the layout." That first day, I showed Jake everything. How to use the inventory scanner, where different categories of supplies were stored, the breakroom hierarchy nobody talked about but everyone understood. He listened intently, asked smart questions, and somehow made the mundane feel less suffocating. When he laughed at my sarcastic comment about the ancient microwave in the break room, something warm bloomed in my chest. The thing about warehouse work is that it's physical. Really physical. You're lifting, carrying, stacking, moving constantly. And Jake, I quickly discovered, had this approach to work that was both impressive and slightly concerning. He never asked for help. Even when we got shipments of the heavy crates, the ones marked with weight warnings, he'd insist on handling them himself. "I've got it," became his catchphrase. The first time I really noticed was our second week working together. A shipment of industrial equipment came in, these massive crates that took 2 people to move safely. The protocol was clear. Heavy items required team lifting. But Jake looked at those crates like they were a personal challenge. "Jake, we should both," I started. "I've got it," he said, already positioning himself. He bent at the knees, proper form, and lifted. His arms strained, muscles defined through his work shirt. He carried that crate to its designated spot like he had something to prove. I should have been annoyed. It was against safety protocol. But instead, I found myself mesmerized. There was something almost vulnerable in his determination, like he was trying to demonstrate his worth through sheer physical effort. Over the following weeks, we fell into a rhythm. We'd arrive at 7, clock in, grab our terrible coffee, and start the day's work. Jake always took the heavy stuff, always. If there were crates to move, he moved them. If there were pallets to reorganize, he did it. I'd offer to help, and he'd flash that apologetic smile and say, "I've got it." At first, I thought maybe he was just one of those guys who needed to prove his masculinity. The warehouse was full of them, men who measured their worth in how much they could lift. But Jake wasn't like that. He wasn't aggressive or boastful. He was gentle with everyone, remembered people's names, asked about their families. He'd help the older workers with tasks that required climbing. He'd stay late if someone needed assistance. The heavy lifting seemed less about ego and more about something else, something I couldn't quite figure out. We started taking our lunch breaks together. The warehouse had this small outdoor area, basically just a concrete pad with a couple of picnic tables, but it was better than eating inside under those fluorescent lights. Jake would bring these elaborate homemade lunches, sandwiches with multiple layers, pasta salads, fruit cut into neat pieces. "You cook?" I asked one day, eyeing his bento-style container. He shrugged, a slight blush coloring his cheeks. "I like it. It's meditative, you know? After a day here, going home and cooking something nice helps me decompress." "That's actually really healthy," I said. "I usually just microwave something depressing." He laughed. "I could teach you sometime. Cooking's easier than people think." My heart did that stupid flutter thing again. "Yeah, maybe." We talked about everything during those lunches. I learned that Jake had moved to town 6 months ago for a fresh start after a bad breakup. He'd been working construction, but wanted something with more regular hours. He loved old movies, especially film noir. He volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. He had a sister in Seattle he was close to, and parents he didn't talk about much. I opened up too, more than I usually did. I told him about my failed freelancing career, my art school dreams that evaporated under the weight of student loans. I told him about my tiny apartment with the leaky faucet I kept meaning to fix. I didn't tell him I was gay. That felt like too much, too risky, even though something in me desperately wanted to. One afternoon in early November, we got a massive shipment, 50 crates of heavy machinery parts, each one weighing at least 80 pounds. Bill took one look and said, "This is going to take all day. Marcus, Jake, you two start organizing these by part number. Get some of the other guys to help." But Jake, predictably, had other ideas. The moment Bill walked away, he started lifting crates by himself, one after another, carrying them to their designated spots like he was possessed. "Jake, seriously, let me help," I insisted. "I've got it," he said, but there was strain in his voice now. "You're going to hurt yourself." "I'm fine, Marcus." But he wasn't fine. I could see it in the tightness around his eyes, the way his breathing had become labored. He was pushing himself too hard, and I didn't understand why. After the 20th crate, I'd had enough. When he bent to lift the next one, I stepped in front of him. "Stop," I said firmly. "Just stop for a minute." He straightened up, frustration flashing across his face. "I can handle it." "I know you can. But why do you have to? Why do you always insist on doing the heavy stuff alone?" For a moment, he just stared at me. Then something in his expression crumbled. "Can we talk? Not here? After work?" My pulse quickened. "Yeah, of course." The rest of the shift felt endless. Jake was quieter than usual, and I kept replaying our conversation, wondering what he wanted to talk about. Had I pushed too hard? Was he angry? Or was it something else? When our shift ended at 5, we walked to the parking lot together. The November air was crisp, the sky already darkening. "There's a diner about 2 blocks from here," Jake said. "Could we grab coffee or something?" "Sure." The diner was one of those retro places trying too hard to capture nostalgia, all chrome and red vinyl booths. We slid into a corner booth, ordered coffee, and sat in awkward silence until the waitress left. Jake wrapped his hands around his mug, staring into it like it held answers. "I'm sorry if I've been weird about the heavy lifting thing." "You don't have to apologize. I'm just worried you're going to hurt yourself." He nodded slowly. "It's stupid, but I have this thing where I feel like I need to prove myself, constantly. Like if I'm not useful, if I'm not strong enough or capable enough, people won't want me around." His vulnerability caught me off guard. "Jake, that's not stupid. But you know that's not true, right? People like you because you're kind and thoughtful, not because you can lift heavy things." "My ex used to say I wasn't enough," he continued, voice quiet. "Not strong enough, not masculine enough, not enough in all these ways I couldn't fix. And I know that's his shit, not mine. But it got in my head. So now I overcompensate. I try to be useful. Indispensable." Something in my chest ached for him. Your ex sounds like an asshole." That got a small laugh. He really was. I took a breath, feeling brave and terrified. "For what it's worth, I think you're more than enough. You're one of the best people I've met in a long time." He looked up at me then, really looked at me, and something passed between us. A recognition, an understanding. "Marcus, can I ask you something personal?" My heart was pounding. "Yeah." "Are you gay?" The question hung in the air. I could lie. I could deflect. I could protect myself. But looking at Jake, at the hope and fear in his eyes. I couldn't do it. Yes, I said simply. His shoulders relaxed. Me too. And just like that, everything shifted. We weren't just co-workers anymore. We were two men who'd found each other in an unexpected place, both carrying our own wounds, both afraid to hope. I've been wanting to tell you for weeks, Jake admitted, but I was scared. This town doesn't exactly feel like the safest place to be out. I know, I've been here 2 years, and I'm still not really out at work. Do you want to be? I considered the question. I want to be myself. I'm tired of hiding, but I also need this job. Jake reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine. What if we didn't have to hide? At least not from each other. I closed the distance, letting our fingers touch. It was such a small gesture, but it felt monumental. I'd like that. We stayed at that diner for hours, talking about everything we'd held back. Jake told me about growing up in a religious household, the years he spent trying to pray away who he was. I told him about coming out in art school, the freedom and terror of it, the way my family still didn't quite know how to talk to me. We talked about loneliness, about finding community, about the small ways we'd learned to survive in a world that wasn't always kind to people like us. When we finally left the diner, the night was fully dark. We stood in the parking lot, neither of us wanting to say goodbye. Would you want to come over this weekend? Jake asked. I could actually teach you to cook something if you want. I'd really like that. He smiled, genuine and warm. Saturday, around 6? It's a date. The word hung between us, full of possibility. Jake's apartment was in a newer complex on the north side of town. When I arrived Saturday evening with a bottle of wine, I'd agonized over choosing. My nerves were frayed. But the moment he opened the door, wearing jeans and a soft sweater, his hair still damp from a shower, I relaxed. Come in, he said. Fair warning, it's kind of small. His apartment was cozy, decorated with care. Bookshelves lined one wall, plants sat on the windowsill, and the kitchen was surprisingly spacious. It smelled like garlic and herbs. I thought we'd make pasta from scratch, Jake said. It's easier than it sounds, I promise. He was right. Under his patient instruction, I learned to make pasta dough, to roll it out, to cut it into fettuccine. Our hands kept brushing as we worked, these small moments of contact that sent electricity through me. Jake was a good teacher, encouraging and funny, making me feel capable even when I messed up. As the pasta cooked, we opened the wine. We moved to his small couch, sitting close enough that our knees touched. The conversation flowed easily, but there was a new energy between us now, charged with attraction and anticipation. I really like you, Marcus, Jake said softly. I know we haven't known each other that long, but I feel like I can be myself with you. That's rare. I feel the same way, I admitted. You make that warehouse job bearable. More than bearable, actually. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. I didn't want to. When his lips met mine, it felt like coming home. The kiss was gentle at first, exploratory, then deepening as weeks of tension finally released. His hand came up to cup my face, and I melted into him. We kissed until the pasta timer went off, then reluctantly pulled apart, both of us slightly dazed and grinning. Dinner was perfect. We ate at his small table, knees touching underneath, talking and laughing like we'd been doing this for years. After we finished, Jake showed me his collection of old movies. We ended up on the couch again, this time with his arm around me, my head on his shoulder, watching Casablanca on his laptop. I don't remember when I fell asleep, but I woke up to early morning light filtering through the curtains, still on Jake's couch, covered with a blanket he must have draped over me. He was in the kitchen, making coffee. Morning, he said when he noticed me stirring. Sorry, I didn't want to wake you. You looked peaceful. What time is it? About 8. I made breakfast if you're hungry. We ate scrambled eggs and toast, and it felt so domestic, so natural, like we'd been doing this forever. Before I left, Jake walked me to my car. So, he said, hands in his pockets, that nervous energy back. Would you want to do this again? The cooking, the movies, the falling asleep on my couch? I laughed. Yeah, definitely. What about the kissing part? I stepped closer, rising on my toes to kiss him. Especially the kissing part. At work on Monday, things were different, but also the same. We still did our jobs, still handled shipments and organized inventory. But now there were small smiles exchanged across the warehouse floor, brief touches when no one was looking, a shared secret that made the fluorescent lights feel less harsh. And Jake still insisted on stacking the heavy crates himself, but now I understood it differently. It wasn't about proving his worth anymore. It was just who he was, someone who carried weight because he could, because he wanted to make things easier for others. So I let him do it, but I stayed close, ready to help if he needed it, knowing that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone be there for you. 3 months later, we moved in together. 6 months after that, I started freelancing again, this time with Jake's encouragement. A year after we met, Jake proposed during one of our movie nights, right as Humphrey Bogart delivered his final lines in Casablanca. I never thought I'd fall in love at a warehouse job, but I did. And every time I see Jake stack something heavy, insisting he's got it even when he doesn't need to prove anything anymore, I fall in love with him all over again. Because that's who he is, strong, capable, and finally allowing himself to be loved exactly as he is. Sometimes the best things find you in the most unexpected places. Sometimes love shows up in steel-toed boots and a safety vest, carrying crates that are too heavy, with kind eyes and a heart that's been waiting for someone to see it. I'm grateful every day that I did.